All right. So, as the announcer had mentioned, we're going to try to keep things as interactive as possible. So whenever you guys want to, have a question or, want to make a comment, please raise your hand. We'll try to make sure everyone has time to interact without disrupting the order of the panel. And we'll definitely try to keep this as interesting as possible. I know lots of times when it's discussions on regulations, it tends to be a little stale, so that's why we have these four amazing panelists to really sort of provide that insight for everyone here. So maybe we'll start in a reverse order, and let's start with Chengyi. So from your perception and Chainalysis point of view, when you're looking across the globe in 2025, where do you see real policy progress, and where do you see things are stalling?
Thanks very much. First of all, I disagree that talking about regulation is generally stale, but that could be a function of the roles that we're in. So looking across the globe, I think where things have been moving, I don't think you can get away from talking about the United States. Obviously in 2025, it's been like a real change in posture, and it's not just the passage of the Genius Act, like actual legislation, but also the President's Working Group report on setting out a roadmap for digital assets, which was actually had quite a lot of thoughtful proposals in there. And also all the initiatives that have been taken at a regulatory level. So rescinding SAB 121, the change in enforcement posture, I think all of that has created a much more favorable and secure environment for builders to operate. So yeah, I think the US is where I would say there's been progress.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Please.
No. I just remembered what I was going to say, which is that, the cool thing about that is that I don't think that's isolated to the US, right? It's actually spilling over to the rest of the world. So when the largest crypto market and the largest financial market in the world says that digital assets is a strategic priority and blockchains are transformative, it does prompt policymakers elsewhere to start thinking, well, are my regulatory frameworks fit for purpose? Should I be a little bit more innovation forward? Do I need to move a little bit faster? And I think we're seeing that in many jurisdictions in Asia.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because, obviously the US is leading the way, but outside of the US, are there any other jurisdictions or countries that you see that's providing very innovative and builder-friendly policies or frameworks? If you had to choose one.
If I had to choose one, innovative and builder-friendly, I think if you ask a lot of the Web3 community, they'll say, something like the UAE, where the regulators are very open posture. I would say in terms of actual movement, and in terms of the processes that are being put in place to form and refine policy, I would say Hong Kong is quite interesting, just because if you look at the pace of regulatory movement, if you look at the lead time between legislation being passed and then regulation being implemented, if you look at the candor with which the policymakers will call out gaps and issues to improve on, I think that's quite. There's a lot of good learning points there, even if you don't fully agree with all of the policy settings.
Absolutely. Do I see any agrees or disagrees? Because I for one tend to agree. For example, when I look at the LEAP framework, I find it very forward-thinking in the sense that let's just take, for example, that Hong Kong dollar stablecoin, right? They're not just thinking about having the framework. It's about how do you have an immediate use case right after it's implemented, and having the ability to trade on-chain secondary government bonds, ETFs, commodities, and even certain renewable assets. I think on day one, I think that certainly provides that immediate use case, at least from the institutional flow perspective. So I certainly agree with you there. Okay. Anyone from the audience? All right, let's move on to OSL Pay. For you guys, right? I think with CoinSign now fully licensed under OJK and part of the OSL family, can you share some sort of lessons that were learned when you had to align local compliance with global standards?
Okay. I think this is not the rumors anymore, it's a confirm, right? So the OSL is actually acquired the local exchanges CoinSign. So myself also holding as a president commissioner of the CoinSign as well. From the OSL group level, to be honest, because we also quite experienced in terms of engaging with different jurisdiction regulators. So we also in the process of applying for multiple jurisdiction licenses. So on our plate right now, for example, in Japan, right now Indonesia, right, and there's Dubai, Bermuda, etc., etc. So it's more to come. And we also right now entering into some payment licenses directions. So in short, with the support from the OSL, definitely, we were able to bring the compliance experience, and also the regulatory experience, to the local team, so that we could ensure that, firstly, to comply strictly with the local regulations, at the same time also bring a new experience. For example, let's say we also regularly share with OJK, previously with Bapati, right? So this is something that it's an ongoing process that both sides have to be educated, right? So that we can move on. In short, I would say that regulated innovation, it's not something that balancing. So to me, it's like we will have to be regulated at the same time, also have to be innovated. Okay, so the other side, regarding your second question, I think it's about the how Indonesia, the framework itself to be beneficiary. Okay, so for the Indonesia, this market is quite rare to me, which has come together with the spot and future. Okay, and at the same time, the model that they're operating is also a bit different. They have a centralized clearing house and they have a central exchange kind of models, right? To me, I felt like it's beneficiary because you're able to keep track, monitoring the transaction, the behavior, right? So it's one of the very good example, which is maybe in other jurisdictions could actually pick up and learn. Yeah, so this is my point here.
Oh, that's very interesting, and I definitely learned something. Learned something there. Angela, now from TRM Lab's perspective, how do builders and founders realistically manage AML, CFT risks cross-border, and especially in regions where you have compliance frameworks that are evolving super fast, and how do they keep up?
Thanks, Nenter. Great to be here. And quick introduction on TRM Labs and why he maybe asked the question on AML CFT, anti-money laundering, countering the financing of terrorism. We are a blockchain intelligence company, and we work with financial institutions, crypto businesses, regulators, and law enforcement to basically detect and fight fraud and financial crime on chain. Really, Nenter, I have two answers to that question, and I really like this mic, that not financial advice. This is not legal and compliance and regulatory advice either. The first thing I would say is that if you're building today, why not think about compliance by design, right? Where you're building with compliance in mind. When you're building something from scratch, there's an opportunity to think about what are controls and measures that we can have in place that could help with risk management and compliance. And before you start yawning and being like, that is the most boring thing to build for. Compliance by design is actually good for business. Because right now in Web3, we're seeing so much institutional money come in. We're seeing financial institutions, regulated banks engage with the ecosystem like never before. And a lot of that is happening because of the regulatory climate shifting, starting from the US. And when we talk to these financial institutions, the first thing that they talk about when they're thinking about, getting involved in public blockchains is compliance, because the regulator is one of the key stakeholders that they have to answer to. And so in order to access that opportunity, in order to get that business, it's important that we're seen as taking compliance seriously as well. So think about building compliance by design. I mean, just as an example, TRM, we work with huge DeFi protocols like Uniswap and 1inch to basically use APIs to detect risky activity that's attempting to basically interact with their protocol, and to then block this activity before it even hits the network. So this is an example of how it's possible. And the second point I would make is talk to regulators, understand what their concerns are and work with them. They're not trying to kill your business. And I think regulators do have some of the same concerns as the industry. I mean, as an example, how many of you guys here worry about getting hacked?
I do.
Yeah, I mean, everybody worries about getting hacked, right? And that is also one of the top things that regulators are worried about, like tech risk and protecting, customer assets, protecting our assets, and protecting the ecosystem. So it's not like the objectives are always at odds. And I think we can think about how do we work together? How do we have these dialogues that can help us together to build a trusted and safer ecosystem?
Completely agree with that. And look, I mean, I refer back to Hong Kong, where the Web3 task force, I think, has been in place for quite some time now, where you have industry leaders, the top sort of legal crypto lawyers, and the top private sector market participants actively educating, but also sort of informing the regulators on sort of the ever-evolving sort of landscape for Web3. So I think that's super important, and that's why I think, as Chengyi had mentioned, Hong Kong has, and I'm not here to put a shameless plug on Hong Kong, but I definitely think it's very important. Because I was surprised that as I sort of travel around the globe attending these conferences, that outside of Hong Kong, there's surprisingly more people that are not aware of how the regulatory body has been so proactive. So lots of times I always tend to refer to them as an example, in addition to sort of the U.S. regulatory regime. Thank you. And now to Asih, who leads the Indonesian Blockchain Association. So I guess, can you tell us how projects and exchanges in Indonesia sort of manage whether or not it's product launches or onboarding, especially when you're faced with sort of evolving and sometimes very unclear crypto regulations?
Thanks. As an Indonesian, I should say that we're pretty grateful to have our regulator, because they're very supportive. Thanks to Melissa, our MCs today. I think she mentions about our event that's just happening also at the same time. I don't ask you guys to move yet. I'm still here. So we're running an Indonesian Blockchain Conference where we provided a space for our regulators there to discuss about what's the urgency in terms of policies. What are the things that they need to anticipate. We also got to do it workshop, which Angela will host one of the workshops there. It's a round table. And what I like to say is that how our regulators try to also understand how they can facilitate this industry to grow. So at the moment, OJK early this year, they have regulatory sandbox in place where new blockchain solutions and business models can operate in a very monitored space, and they can still do their things legally, but monitored under OJK. So these things, I see that it's very helpful, because the innovators, people, new entrepreneurs, when they come to these spaces, like, is it safe? I don't want to start a business and then at the end of the day, I got knocked by the regulators in Indonesia. So if you ask about the clarity, I think it's pretty clear in Indonesia about the regulation itself. But again, still so many things to grow, of course, and they are there to learn. That's why we also provide those kind of space. But I guess we also here need to agree that innovations always comes 2 to 3 steps ahead compared to regulations. But again, having our regulator here in OJK, Financial Services Authority, they're very open, they want to listen. So being part of the association, I think is very helpful because we become a bridge to, telling them, okay, this is what's happening. And there's a very huge potential of risk as well. So what do you guys want to do about it, And again, what happened in the US also, definitely pushed a lot of things. And I think Indonesia was pretty early and quite advanced in terms of regulation. So pretty confident on that.
Fantastic. And for the audience, you have the executive director for the Indonesian Blockchain Association here. Is there anyone in the audience that has any questions or comments, any builders here that would like to take the chance to have some interaction? Come on, guys. All right, we have one over there.
Yeah, thank you everyone. So my name is Steven. I just have a question. So as you guys may already know, I think after Trump got elected, the US started to, revolve a lot of stuff. And recently they've been talking they want to be the crypto capital of the world, which I think they start to doing that by doing the Genius Act. And then I just want to know from the speaker's perspective, do you guys think that this will affect a lot of countries? I would say, let's just say a lot of countries in Asia. And yesterday night, actually, if you guys read the news, China, they tried to actually, adopt the yuan stable coins by actually starting to doing the pilot test on Hong Kong. Do you think a lot of countries will do the same? I mean, we will soon, let's say, have Indonesian stable coins or let's say, Ringgit Malaysia stable coins. I mean, do you guys feel that this will happen in the near future? Maybe in the next 5 years or something? Yeah, I think that's just my question.
Great question. No, thank you. I don't know if anyone wants to take that from the stage.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for your question. I think, everywhere I go, especially in Asia, people are asking, with the US wanting to be the crypto capital, what does that mean for the rest of us? Is all the capital, all jobs, are they all going to, basically, are we going to see a flight back into the US? And my answer is always that a rising tide lifts all boats. And talking to regulators around the region, I think everyone is looking at what the US is doing, and some of them are really recalibrating their approach. And this includes certain countries that maybe historically were a little bit had a less friendly posture to crypto. So I do think that it is really a case of rising tide lifts all boats. And then the second question I think about stablecoins is that it's already happening, right? We do have rupiah stablecoins today. We have Singapore dollar stablecoins. And I think, there is a place for both local currency denominated stablecoins as well as global currency stablecoins. The use cases are different, and in order to kind of have a thriving stablecoin ecosystem, you do need to have both. And I think the HKMA, the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, put it very well. They said that, have a use case before you think about just issuing a stablecoin. I think that's very important. What do you see people using this for?
Absolutely, well said.
Yeah.
Chengyi?
I mean, I feel like, we've been seeing these stablecoin regulatory frameworks brewing and underway in Asia for a while, right? Singapore, Hong Kong, Korea, there's multiple competing bills that are being discussed. And I feel like outside of the US, it is very clear that the objective of the goal is to enable the emergence of well-regulated local currency stablecoins. And if I think about it from a central banking perspective, that makes total sense, right? Because the US is championing US dollar stablecoins because they think that will help them to sort of maintain a strategic economic lever. But here in the rest of the world, there are a lot of other considerations, right? You don't want to see dollarization. You don't want to see that exacerbated if there is a, regulated US dollar stablecoin that starts to become very dominant. You're concerned about financial stability flows. There are, So I think from all those respects, yes, I think the Genius Act will accelerate local currency stable coins emerging. And it's both from an offensive, like competitive, and a defensive kind of starting point.
Yes, Jing, please.
Yeah. So I think you all also aware that the stablecoin start with trading last time, USDT. Then you can see that recent years that there's a lot of projects and also the very innovative product came out that actually link swifting to the payment, right? So that's why stablecoin. I mean, we also quite exciting to see that stablecoin like Genius Act and also the Hong Kong side, very aggressively launching this something that related to stablecoin, and we can see that day to day there's a lot of new so-called regulation come out from different jurisdictions that also started to involve in a stablecoin as well. So we can see that in the future it might be various of stablecoin, then and there's some product also came out which is they will try to aggregate all the stablecoin, right? Then and can do the swapping between the different stablecoin. So I guess in the future you can see like maybe fiat will be slowly, okay, fiat is still very important, right? As a bridge between the traditional banking and also the crypto world, but eventually you might able to see like the stablecoin between different jurisdictions will be able to swap instantly online, and then the whole traditional banking process will be extremely seamless compared to right now using like Swift network or those like O-way cross-border solution. Then PayFi will be the next wave, I would say very shortly, these few years.
Can't wait till Swift is finally away and done with. Anything on your side to add, Asih?
Yeah, I'm just going to echo what these fellow panelists have mentioned. I think it's going to be affect a lot of countries, and we've been also bringing these topics to the table to our regulators. But I think what is very fun but also challenging part of if we're talking about the regulation is if there's one specific act or regulation that fits in one country, it doesn't mean that it could fit also to the other country. Like for Indonesia, I think we see similarity between Indonesia to more like European unions, like MICA, which that's also what we've been look up to when it comes to regulations because they're pretty comprehensive. I think that's what our regulators is more interested in. So yeah, it's definitely bringing a lot of things, of course, to the table. But we also want to bring something proper, I guess, the kind of thing. So yeah.
Absolutely. And, I can't believe 30 minutes just went by like that. I mean, I certainly learned a lot from the panelists here, and hopefully the audience has as well. And I think as the announcer had mentioned, after the panel, we will be able to interact with the audience outside of the dome here. But, I'd like to thank all four panelists for the amazing conversation. And let's give a round of applause. Woo! Thank you.
Thank you.